What we call our Fall Colors Tour, that's an 18-day land program. And I will say in 2022, next year, that's our 40th anniversary, and we will be doing two motor coaches on this, coming from Anchorage back down to Seattle. And Joseph and I will be doing those. I will be riding halfway with one coach and the other half with the other coach. So it's I know it sounds like a long time away, but most people that plan Alaska do it in advance. So in 2022, that will be primarily about the same pattern, and we'll be doing two motor coaches for it. It'll probably be the very end of August. It'll start and coming back into September. And one of the advantages of that is when we get up to about this area right in through here, the fall colors start. And you're going to have fall colors. You're going to have 15 to 16-day fall colors. As we come south, the fall colors will follow us all the way back to Seattle. So it's really a beautiful fall color trip that I could say. The average temperatures at that time of the year should be right in between the 60s, 70s, if you will. As we come farther south, they're going to warm up a little bit. This is basically Alaska in through here. So it'd be typical kind of fall weather, if you will. But the people that travel to Alaska basically have four expectations. And those are, number one is to see glaciers. And number two is to see the mountains. And of course, that includes Denali, which is the tallest peak in North America, 20,310 feet. And then, of course, scenery is the third expectation. And the fourth, but not least, is wildlife. And our total philosophy is to show you more glaciers, more scenery, more wildlife, and more mountains. And you will see some of the most amazing scenery and wildlife on this trip than any that I've ever been on up through Alaska. Really quite interesting. So when we first got started in 1982, I had my first motor coach. That was a flexible coach. That was the name of it. And that was outside the Anderson House in Wabasha, Minnesota. The first coach that I drove up the Alaska Highway was an MC9. That was in 1983. And that picture was actually taken in Whitehorse, right outside the SS Klondike, which we'll talk about a little later. Then this was my first basically new coach that I bought. That was in 1989. That also went up the highway. It also went to Nova Scotia. It went to Florida. It went to Arizona, California. It did a lot of things. And then our newest coaches, which are John Hall's Alaska coaches, we bought our first new one of those in 2005. And our newest one now is a 2018. We didn't do anything in 2019 or 2020. But if you'll see, the names on these coaches was Anderson House Tours. That's our parent company name. Our trade name is John Hall's Alaska. So when I owned the hotel in Minnesota, I had, it was called the Anderson House. And then on that started Anderson House Tours. We kept that corporate name. And now when we converted over to just doing Alaska, we changed our company name to John Hall's Alaska. So that's kind of our evolution of our motor coach to the state of Alaska. But now you can see this photo is our main office in Minnesota, John Hall's Alaska Guest Suites. We have a lot of people that from Minnesota, Wisconsin. They come down and they actually start their tour there. They leave their cars at our lot, and then we drive them to the airport, and then they start their journeys. So that's kind of our evolution, if you will. Our motor coaches are the most modern coaches in Alaska. They come from the factory with 56 or 60 seats. We designate ours to only have 48 seats. So the spacing between the seats is much greater, so you have much greater leg room. We also have galleys in the back that have Keurig coffee makers on them. And this year, we're limiting our groups to 24 to 30 people, probably 24 people. So in other words, this seat would be empty. This seat would be occupied. The one behind it would be empty. This would be occupied. This would be empty. So we're social distancing. If this seat was occupied, the one across the aisle would be empty. So we're staggering the seats to give you, it's not 6 foot social distancing, but it's over 5 feet. So we're doing our best to conform to the CDC standards. We also have a extreme sanitation program that Elizabeth actually designed back last year when COVID first came out. And you're going to see that ours are probably more stringent than anybody in the industry. That's on our website. If you just go onto our website and just click on the COVID-19 protocols, you'll see how we do that. So we've actually been sanitizing them for probably 10 years now because of the norovirus that people come off the cruise ships with. To eliminate that, we wiped out all the surfaces every day with Lysol wipes and Lysol spray. We disinfect the coaches every night. And now we'll be doing a UL fogging every night as well. So when you're on that coach, you're going to be better well protected than even the airline. We circulate our air. The coach circulates its air every 4 minutes. But overhead, there's also overhead blowers. There's a unit up here that doesn't filter the air, but Randy, our mechanic, has designed a Mervate filtering system that's antimicrobial that will filter the air every 2 minutes. So it by far is the safest mode of transportation for the COVID. So enough on that. So all of our tours include, they're totally inclusive. So they include the best meals. And as I say, that's part of traveling to Alaska, is dining with the Alaskans. And you're going to have some just incredible meals, from halibut to salmon to Kodiak scallops to fresh Alaska-grown vegetables. They're just absolutely incredible. One of the probably one of the comments we always get back on our evaluations is, "You fed us too much." Well, I'd rather have you say you fed us too much than you gave us skimpy continental breakfast for 14 days. We don't do those. We have full sit-down meals. No buffets will be allowed anymore, so everything will be ordering off the menu, if you will. So we also include a libation every night with dinner. So if you want a glass of wine, if you want a glass of a local brewed beer, such as Denali Brewing Company, or in Fairbanks or in Anchorage, I'm not so sure we're going to find too much of that down the Alaska Highway, but we'll have to settle with bottles. But I think we can live with that. But when you fly into Anchorage, your first night's accommodations will be at the Lakefront Hotel. And that I really like, because when you walk into that hotel, you immediately know you're in the state of Alaska. Every animal in the state of Alaska is pictured here. There's a full body mount of a Alaska brown bear. There's moose. There's caribou. There's Dall sheep. There's every species of salmon, halibut. Every animal that you expect to see in Alaska will be here. This grand fireplace in the lobby. So when you walk into that hotel, it immediately sets the standard for your Alaska trip. And this also sits on Lake Hood, which is the busiest seaplane base in the state of Alaska. So you'll see planes taking off and landing every maybe 5-10 minutes, if you will. The rooms are all have been all redone. This is actually a Millennium property. They just call it the Lakefront. So they either have 2 queen beds or a king bed, whichever you have specified in your booking specified. So we're going to head up the Alaska Highway, go north up the George Parks Highway. And as you can see, we're starting to see the fall colors. Alaska doesn't have any oak trees, so you're not going to get the bright reds. Like in the picture behind me, this is Denali. Those are low berry bushes, blueberry bushes that have turned red in the fall of the year. So that's what you'll be seeing, the golds and the reds. We'll go up to up just on the other side of Palmer. We're going to stay overnight at the Connect River Lodge. And these are individual cabins. They're all self-contained. But again, we want to portray that atmosphere of really being in Alaska. So this is the main lodge with the dining facilities, etc. But these are the cabins that we'll actually be overnighting in. From here, we'll continue up through the Matanuska Valley. And this is the area where all the farmland in Alaska is. Hopefully, when we're there, we'll be able to stop in Palmer at the Alaska State Fair. That usually runs the last week of August into the first week of September. And that's where you'll see 115-pound cabbages, 8-9-pound tomatoes, zucchinis that are 2 feet long. It's just amazing because that sunlight lets these grow 24 hours a day. So this is the farm area, and this is where President Roosevelt, when he created the New Deal, this is where he gave the land to Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and one farmer from Oklahoma State. I don't know how he got in there, but one Oklahoman, the rest were the Midwest farmers that actually homesteaded the land up there. Again, these are the low berry bushes with the views of Denali that we'll see. It's just absolutely beautiful. We'll work our way up to the Riverview. Actually, we're going to make a stop at the Dream a Dream Kennels. We're going to introduce you to the Iditarod and the puppies. So we'll get a chance to see that. We're going to overnight for 2 nights at the Riverview cabins at the Bluffs. This is where the restaurant is up here. They have a shuttle bus that'll take you from here up to the restaurant and back. But these are just the most beautiful cabins, probably the nicest accommodations in Alaska. They all overlook Denali National Park. So they all have balconies out in front. So you can sit on the balcony, look right out over Denali National Park. And the rooms, again, the ambience is all Alaskan. It's just really nice. So we're going to be here for 2 nights. The dining is just top of the mark, if you will. This is up at the Denali Bluffs up on top. So the shuttle bus will take you right up this trail and into the restaurant. They also have a great lounge area overlook, if you will. You can go out and sit on the patio. And this is, just to give an example, this is the Princess Lodge down here. That has over 800 rooms, so there's about 1,600 people. Right over in this side of it is Holland America's Lodge, and that has about 400 rooms. So combined with these two, in a normal Denali day, there's about somewhere between 15 to 2,000 people just in there. With us, there's 24 people at the Bluff. So big difference. The food is absolutely incredible. They have a superb chef that's going to prepare the meals. Again, you'll be ordering off the menu, anything from steak to halibut to salmon, all fresh and prepared to your liking. So the next morning after breakfast, we're going to go into Denali. And you can see all these people have blue jackets on. That is going to be part of your trip. That's kind of a trademark of John Hall's Alaska. I designed these back in, I'm going to say it was in the late 80s, early 90s. A company out of Scottsdale, Arizona called Antigua produced my first ones for us. Since we've reinforced them a little bit, and now we embroider your name into it. You have the John Hall's logo on the front, and on the back is actually the Alaska state flag, which are the blue and gold colors. So it'll say the Big Dipper and North Star is the Alaska flag, and then it'll say, for example, if you're going in this year, it'll say Alaska 2021. If you're going next year, it'll say Alaska 2022, and possibly our 40th anniversary on there as well. When we had our 50th anniversary of Alaska, we actually had that on the back of the jackets as well. So we're going to actually take you into Denali. Now, there's 3 tours that go into Denali. I really want you to understand this is probably the most important part of your trip into Denali. There's a good tour, there's a better tour, and there's an absolute best tour. And you're going to go on the best tour. The good tour goes out roughly about 15 to 23 miles out to this point. That's called the Natural History Tour. And on a normal year, there's about 100,000 people that take that tour. Unfortunately, they don't see mountains, they don't see much of wildlife, but they do get the history of Denali National Park. Thus, it's called the Natural History Tour. It's a 3.5-hour tour in and out. The better tour is what's called the Tundra Wilderness Tour. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that one goes in roughly somewhere between 53 and 62 miles at one of these 2 points. On that one, you should see the moose, the Dall sheep, the caribou, the grizzly bears, the smaller animals, ptarmigan, possibly a wolf, possibly a lynx. You just never know. There is a 30% chance you will see Denali. And 30% chance figure comes from the National Park Service. That's not our figure. The reason for that is Denali sits right down here. And Denali and Mount Foraker, Mount Evans stand somewhere between 18 and 23,000 feet, or 20,321 feet, excuse me. So what happens is the weather comes in from the west. So it picks up the moisture off the ocean. It comes across 60-degree land temperatures, and then it comes in and it hits these incredible peaks that are about 10 below zero. So when you get warm, moist air hitting 10 below zero weather, it creates an incredible weather front, as you know. So that weather front follows the Alaska Range right up, which is here. And basically what it does, it blocks off the view of Denali. So there's a good view of Denali if it's open from Sable Pass, also from this point outside of Polychrome Pass, another one at this point over here, and there's another one at Stony Hill Overlook. So if the mountain's out, you'd get some good views. So this is an 8.5-hour tour in and out. You'll have a box lunch, which doesn't consist of much, but it's suitable. So we're going to take you on the best tour, and that is we're going to take you all through these areas. We'll be making stops at Teklenika for restroom stops. We'll be stopping at Polychrome Pass for pictures. We'll be stopping at Tokelet River for a rest stop and coffee and hot chocolate and restrooms. And then we'll go out to Eielson Visitor Center, stop there. And this is a great view of Denali from here. They have a big open display of Denali, the mountain, how the climbers go up, etc. And you'll learn a little bit about Fanny Quigley here as well. And then we're going to come out and we're going to make a stop at Wonder Lake. When we get to Wonder Lake, you are 23.5 miles from the face of Denali. It is the best view that you can have anywhere in Denali National Park that you can drive to. It is incredible. And then we'll continue out to Kantishna. Kantishna, we're going to have lunch at the Backcountry Lodge. You'll have a chance to do some hiking and gold panning. And then we'll come back and do the 4.5-hour trip back out to the visitor center, if you will. So that's the good, the better, and the best tours of Denali. And I'm sure you've talked to people over the years that said, well, we went to Denali and we really didn't see much. It was kind of a waste of time. Well, that's because nobody told them what was available before they went. And they probably ended up on that natural history tour. They were one of those 100,000 people. That's unfortunate, but that's the way the cruise ships and the travel agents sell the program, because they don't know what's available. Traveling with us, you don't have to worry about that. We're going to give you the best of everything. So this is what Denali is going to look like in the fall. It's totally different in late August and September than it is in June, July, and early August. This is my favorite time of the year to go to Alaska. You're going to see incredible wildlife because the big animals are all in their rut or their mating season now. So there's a lot of activity. They're also foraging, getting ready for winter. There's a good possibility of what they call termination dust in Alaska is the first snowfalls on the highest peaks. So we're going to see moose in Denali. You're going to see, hopefully you'll see two males fighting over the females. You're going to see grizzly bears. And grizzly bears are very active now. They're down searching for the berries and ground squirrels. They have to build up a lot of body fat to go into their hibernation period, which is going to be just in a couple weeks from now. You'll see the caribou. Again, they're also in the migration and their mating season. So with the backdrops of the fall colors in these animals, it's really some of the best photographic opportunities you're going to have. Of course, the Dall sheep, that is basically what when Don Sheldon actually designed or made Denali the national park, that was because of the Dall sheep, the protection of these majestic animals. So it's not uncommon to see 100 of these on a trip in and out of Denali. So we're going to go in on a private vehicle that's owned and operated by the Backcountry Lodge. There will probably be limited to 24 to 30 people on that. So it'll, again, be just our group going back. And you're going to have the greatest drivers that are conscious of where the wildlife are. We'll be stopping, of course, for all wildlife to get photos of it. You're not allowed out of the bus because you don't want one of those hungry grizzly bears coming after you because they think you're just a big ground squirrel. But this is the additional 40 miles that you're going to be traveling on the Denali Road, if you will. And you can see the majestic Mount McKinley or Mount Denali in the background there. So when we get out to Wonder Lake, you're going to have some of the most incredible views. The highway comes right here, and this is where we'll be stopping. And of course, this is Denali right there. These are the photos that everybody uses when they market Denali. Unfortunately, they have them in their catalogs, and you think you're going to see them. They don't tell you you're going to see them, but they don't tell you you're not going to see them. The issue is that this is 90 miles back on the road, and they either go 23 miles back or they go 53 miles back. So they're not even close to Wonder Lake and the good views of Denali. But you're going to get some incredible pictures here with the fall colors and the mountains in the background. And the later it is in the year, the clearer the weather always seems to be. We have had just incredible weather on this. So we're going to go back to the Backcountry Lodge. This is Moose Creek, and that's where gold was actually discovered in 1906. So that was what put Cantishan on the map. It was an old gold mining community. So this is the day lodge where we'll be having lunch. So our coach will pull in here. We'll just walk right down the boardwalk to the restaurant. We'll have a sit-down luncheon. This is actually the day lodge that they call it. And we'll have a great sit-down lunch. You'll have make your own sandwiches, salads, soups. There's usually vegetable soup or tomato bisque. I was trying to think. And then there's a variety of salads to have as well. So it's as much as you want to eat for lunch, and beverages are also they're available for you. So then after lunch, we're going to take you down and we're going to let you pan for gold. And I guarantee you'll find gold. I won't guarantee you how much gold you'll find, but I'll guarantee you will bring gold back. And it's just a fun opportunity. You can also have an opportunity to do a little hiking. And then about an hour and a half later, we'll reboard our motor coach or our bus, and we'll head back out to that beautiful 92 miles back into Denali. The advantages when we come out in the morning, we see the animals out feeding in the morning. When we come back in the afternoon, we'll hit the evening feeding time. So you're getting the best viewing time for wildlife that there is. So we'll overnight again in Denali. The next morning after breakfast, you can sleep in. We won't. You can have a late breakfast, and then we'll head down to the Alaska Railroad. And you are going to be in the first car behind the engine and baggage car. These are called the Gold Star cars. So the first 2/3 of it are enclosed domes, if you will. The back 1/3 is an observation platform. As you can see, this gentleman is taking pictures out of there. These are the regular Alaska Rail cars are here, but you're going to be in the most exclusive, which are called the Alaska Gold Star. And this is the interior of those. So the viewing is just incredible. This are the front 2/3, and then the observation is in the back. Now you'll also be having luncheon on board this train car. The dining facility is right down below. So it's in the same car, and it's only for the Gold Star passengers. And all your meals, of course, are included. So you just order off the menu. We'll get into Fairbanks. You'll actually have dinner on that train as well. So we'll get into Fairbanks about 8 o'clock at night. Our coach will meet you there, transport you right over to the Bear Lodge. And this will be your home for the next 2 nights in Fairbanks. The next morning after breakfast, again, we have a dining room right in the hotel here. You'll go down for breakfast. After breakfast, we'll depart for the Riverboat Discovery. Now, also in conjunction with the hotel is the Fairbanks Auto Museum. And there's about 80 vehicles here, all pre-World War II vehicles. The first car that ever drove up the Alaska Highway is on display here. And it's not my 47 Cadillac, but it's really an interesting. You can spend 2-3 hours in here. Not only are the cars interesting, but there's the period dress from that era is also here. So you can see all the period dress. There's also photographs of the early cars in Alaska. So it's an education about the motor cars in Alaska after the Alaska Highway was built. So you can just go over there anytime from the hotel. It's right in conjunction with the hotel. But we'll go out to the Riverboat Discovery in the morning. We'll board the Riverboat Discovery, and we're going to do about a 3.5-hour cruise up the Chena and Canada River. And we're going to go out to a true Athabascan Village and spend a couple hours there. On the way up, we'll see float planes taking off and landing. You will see a demonstration. We'll stop at the Trailbreaker Kennels. This is the home of the late Susan Butcher, the 4-time Iditarod champion. So the vessel will pull up along shore. This is Dave Munson, Susan's husband, and 2 of their daughters. They'll do a demonstration on dogs, the Iditarod team. So they'll hook the puppies up to this 4-wheeler, and they'll actually take it out right around the lake here and give you a demonstration. Now, we're going to actually come back to this later, but we'll continue up to the Athabascan Village, and you're going to see how the Athabascans live. For example, how they make their parkas out of the moose hides, the caribou hides. This is actually one of the Athabascan beautiful parkas that they model. So, but this is just an idea. You'll see a dog sled team. You'll see a herd of caribou that they have here, or reindeer as they call them. You'll see how they build their homes with the sod roofs. So it's basically an hour and a half of education on how the Athabascan natives live. From here, we'll come back to Fairbanks, disembark the sternwheeler, and we're going to go on our motor coach and go back to the Trailbreaker Kennels. Here, we're going to have luncheon. And while we're having lunch, and this is Dave Munson again, he's going to talk about Susan, his wife, that unfortunately we lost to lymphomic cancer in 2006. But he's also going to demonstrate how they have to prepare for the Iditarod. You'll see a lot of photos here. You'll see Susan's first sled here. You'll see Susan's 4 trophies that she won winning the Iditarod. And you'll also learn about the Yukon Quest, which Dave actually won that one year. So you're going to learn a lot about the life with the dog teams in Alaska. You'll also get a chance. After lunch, we'll go out amongst the puppies. You'll be able to hold the puppies. You'll see how they train them, how they train the dogs, and people always want to take these puppies home with them. That's kind of what we call one of those lasting experiences. When you hold that puppy, those are things you won't forget. It's just part of the whole Alaskan experience that you'll have. And like I say, we provide the best of everything in Alaska. That evening, we're going to take you out to the Alaska salmon bake. That's all Alaska salmon, halibut cooked over these alderwood fires. They also used to have a big salad bar buffet. Now it's not going to be buffet. It's going to be more kind of order off the menu. Tell people what they want and they'll bring it to you because of the COVID restrictions. So everybody, our partners in Alaska, are all doing their best to conform to the standards. So the next morning after breakfast, we'll depart Fairbanks after 2 nights at the Bear Lodge. We'll drive down the Alaska, or down the George Parks Highway to the Alaskan Highway, which is at Delta Junction. We'll do a group picture at mile 1422. That is actually the end of the Alaska Highway. It actually went up to Fairbanks, but that part of the road was already built from Delta Junction to Fairbanks. So the Alaska Highway actually joined it at Delta Junction. And just as a point of interest, the Alaska Highway was built when the Japanese were invading A2 and Kiska in the Alaska Peninsula. And they built that road 1,422 miles. The Canadian Army and the U.S. Army, they completed that in 9 months. I mean, that's incredible when you figure it takes 9 months to get a permit to fix a pothole in an intersection today. But we'll learn all about the highway as we travel down. So our first stop will actually be in, as we leave Alaska we're still in Alaska, but we'll be going into Tok. And again, this is the sections of the highway we'll be driving through from Fairbanks down to Tok. And Tok was named after Little Tokyo, actually. But we'll stop in Tok. That'll be our overnight. We're going to stop at Fast Eddie's for a lunch and hotel overnight. The following morning after breakfast, we'll continue and down the Alaska Highway, and the scenery is just spectacular. Now, unfortunately, these aren't fall colors; these are summer colors. But these will all be bright gold as we travel south. We'll come into Whitehorse for our next evening. So we've actually entered the Yukon at Beaver Creek. And now the Alaska Highway has now come down through the Yukon Territory. Whitehorse is the capital of the Yukon, and this is actually the Klondike SS Klondike. That motor coach picture that I showed you at the beginning, that was actually parked right here, and I took that picture on our first trip up the Alaska Highway. And my son John actually went fishing right down here, and he caught his first Arctic grayling right in the Yukon River. So we'll overnight in the city of Whitehorse, and after breakfast the next morning, we'll continue down the Alaska Highway. Now, the Alaska Highway has been shortened by about 300 miles since I first drove it, and when I made my first trip up in 1983. This is part of the old highway when they constructed it to go over some of the rivers. But we'll be paralleling part of the old highway. A lot of the original restaurants that we used to stop at and neat places have since closed because the traffic has dwindled quite a bit since '83. But we'll go into Watson Lake, and that's going to be our next overnight. And Watson Lake is the home of the sign forest. And right now, there's over 10,000 highway signs there. And we encourage people taking this trip to bring a sign from their home city or the villages or Minnesota or wherever, and we'll put it up on these posts. Like I say, there's over 10,000 last time I was there. We'll spend some time here so you can go through and look at all the unique spots. Again, there's a couple of our visitors with their blue jackets on. This is the back of the jacket is the Alaska state flag. And then it says, I think that one says Alaska 2015 on it. But this was a group that we had several years ago. We had this sign made up with the John Hall's emblem. I've seen that. Was I there 3 years ago? It's still there. The printing on it has been faded out by the sun and the weather, but the logo you can still see this part of it. So we'll spend some time in Watson Lake. And then from here, we'll continue south, and our next stop will be at Muncho Lake. And Muncho Lake, we used to stop at. We stopped at that on our first trip up in 1983 at a little place called J&H Restaurant, and that overlooked Muncho Lake. Muncho Lake is right back here. So the cabins actually sit right down on the lake. But it's really another really neat. The ambience in there is just incredible. So we have a dining room and cocktail lounge here as well. So we'll overnight in Muncho Lake, and then we'll head south down to Fort Nelson. Fort Nelson is probably got the neatest Alaska Highway Museum anywhere in the Yukon and Alberta, if you will. So we'll stop here and tour the Fort Nelson Heritage Museum. They've got some of the original mileposts there. They have a little kind of a village from some of the old churches that they rescued and moved over there. So it's really neat, and it's all about the Alaska Highway, which you're experiencing. All the way down the Alaska Highway, we're seeing wildlife, and anywhere from bison. And this is really funny because you see the little calves. And the neat thing about the bisons are the moose, the caribou, the elk, the other bigger animals. They have their mating season is in late August and in September, but the buffalo don't have a mating season. That's why you see these little calves in September. So they were probably born 6 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever. So you can see the adults and you can see the youthful calves at the same time. But we're going to see wildlife all the way down. And one thing about our company, it's mandatory that our drivers stop for wildlife. So many companies that visit Alaska, they're on a time schedule and they go by. People go to Alaska to see wildlife. I'm strict about this policy that I started in 1983. We stop for all wildlife. We don't want you to get out of the coach. We've had some close calls, but we'll stop and so you can get photographs from the coach. We're also going to see some incredible scenery as we go south, the old buildings along the highway. We'll then come into Dawson Creek. And Dawson Creek is actually the end of the Alaska Highway. If you're going south, if you're going north, it's milepost 0, or the beginning of the Alaska Highway. So we'll do a group picture outside the Alaska Highway sign. And that's so you've got a sign that you actually started the Alaska Highway and actually finished the Alaska Highway. So people doubt your word. Then the next morning, we're going to continue traveling south, and we'll actually go into the Canadian Rockies. Our first stop will be in Jasper National Park, And we are going to be staying at one of my old favorites. It's called the Crossing. And this is the hotel that I used from 1983, probably up till whenever I quit using the Alaska Marine Highway, probably in the late 80s. But it's located right down, in between Banff and Jasper National Park. It's actually in Jasper National Park. So we'll overnight here for 2 nights. And then the next morning after breakfast, we'll go down just so you have an idea what the hotel rooms look like. Again, they're very tastefully decorated, and you're in the wilderness area. Again, you're not in the hustle and bustle of Banff or Jasper. So next day we'll travel down the Icefield Parkway, and this is probably the most beautiful drive in Alaska. This is called the Bow Valley, and it's the Bow River is here as well. So we're going to do some great sightseeing. We'll go up to the Columbia ice fields and ride the ice bus, as I call it, across the glacier. And then we're going to visit some incredible glacier lakes. This is Peyto Lake, and that's probably one of the most photographed lakes in the Canadian Rockies. Again, you see some termination dust on the top of it. And this one is actually just on, we got a fresh snow. You can actually see it on the trees as well. Makes some great photos. This is Moraine Lake. And Moraine Lake is also known as the Seven Peaks of Seven Sisters. This particular lake used to be pictured on the Canadian $20 bill. I think they've changed it now with the new clear plastic and what have you in their currency system. But this used to be pictured on the Canadian $20 bill. And this was one of our first and favorite stops in 1983. We actually had lunch at one of there's a lodge right down here in Moraine Lake Lodge. Then, of course, there's Lake Louise. And Lake Louise is probably the most, I'm going to say it's one of the most publicized lakes in the Canadian Rockies, mainly because of the Banff Springs Hotel that sits on it. The Lake Louise Chateau that sits on it. So we'll also visit Athabascan Falls, which is an incredible waterfalls. And this goes down 2 levels. So we'll have time to explore that as well. But again, when we're in Banff and Jasper National Park, the primary animals we're going to be seeing here are the Roosevelt elk. And there's literally hundreds of them. They actually come into the towns of Jasper and Banff, and eat people's gardens right in their yards and eat the flowers, etc. So it's not unusual to see 15, 20, 30 of these, and they're herded up at this time of the year as well. Also, the bighorn sheep. It's a very popular all the way from Muncho Lake all the way down to Jasper. And of course, we'll visit downtown Banff. We don't stay here, but we visit it, and we'll also take you out and visit Banff Springs Hotel, which is one of the old Canadian Pacific hotels. Used to have all these great hotels. They were owned by the railroad, so they had them in anywhere from Quebec to Whistler to Lake Louise and Banff. But again, this is some elk on the golf course that we were driving by. You can see there's a bull with his harem of cows. So that's very common to see at this time of the year as we're driving south. So we'll spend 2 days in the Canadian Rockies, and then we'll head down through Banff and out to a little town called Kamloops, and that's still in the Canadian Rockies. This is the lodge that we stay at. It's right on the lake. Very restful, very peaceful again. We're avoiding all these big mega crowds, if you will. So every place that we've got lined up we're kind of isolated from the hustle and bustle, if you will. So we'll continue then after our overnight here and breakfast in the morning, we'll continue down through the mountains and into the city of Seattle. Seattle, of course, is right on the water. The first trip that I made in 1983, we actually drove to Seattle, and that's where we boarded the ferry. Was actually in just outside of Seattle in Bellingham, and then we took it up to Skagway. But we'll be staying for overnight at the Marriott Airport, which is sits up on a hill overlooking the airport. It's a beautiful hotel, very beautiful rooms, nice restaurant facilities, nice lounge facilities as well. And I encourage you, if you haven't been to Seattle, possibly stay an extra day or two. Some incredible experiences there. One of them, the highest rated experience that I can recommend, is not the Space Needle. Everybody sees the Space Needle, and that's, you can ride up and have a good view of the city and ride back down. But go to the Boeing Museum of Flight out at Boeing, just outside of Boeing Field in Seattle. This is the first jet presidential plane, Air Force One. It's a Boeing 707, and that's on display at Boeing Field. There's also a DC-3. I mean, every aircraft that you can imagine is on display. There's a DC-3, the first 737 that Boeing built is there. Probably one of the most interesting that you'll see is the SST, if you remember them. British Airways, I think, used to fly a lot of them, and that's where the nose actually bent down for landing. So as you can see, that it's on a swivel, so the pilots can see down for landing, because this is a supersonic plane, and it was quite interesting. So I would recommend staying an extra day in Seattle. There's a nice waterfront hotel we can make arrangements for you at. You can visit Seattle Underground, the Space Needle, etc. Whatever it is, we want to make sure you're safe. We'll make sure we get the arrangements made for your safety. That's our main concern.